Good afternoon and welcome to Mono Pond. But first, let's check out the trails. Trails here are officially blazed yellow and they pretty quickly fork. There's a short detour side trail for a nice viewpoint. A lot of the trail is like this, where you can just barely make out the water. Thankfully, there are at least a few spots, like the one before, where you can get a vantage point, although I think they're mainly fisherman path equivalent. The trails were put in sometime in the last 10 years or so by an Eagle Scout from Columbia's Troop 162. There's also this pretty good-sized island, but we'll get to that in a minute. We have reached the turnaround for the yellow trail, and from here on out, it'll be the red trail. I think it heads out for maybe like 3/4 of a mile, and then there's a tiny little loop turnaround at the end. This section tends to be a lot wetter. Not only do we have side paths, but we've got logs placed for bridges. Thankfully, we don't need them today. We are just past the end of the red trail, but enough people walk this way that I gotta show you. Comes out on this utility corridor. The trails were in a lot rougher shape the last time. It seems like they've either used more often or people have been through and sort of cleaned them up. But when I came here the first time, I thought the trail continued off in this direction, and there is stuff over there, but I think it's private property and ATV trails. Now we're, I think, 1.5 miles out. Definitely much nicer blazes now. This is the turnaround we came from up there, and this is the loop part. Back on the yellow trail again. This time we're on the upper side of the loop, but the water's right there, so it's a pretty narrow loop. This is likely the only numbered post that you'll see. It should correspond to a guided nature hike on the back of this parking kiosk, but it seems like most of it has disappeared a long time ago. And that's the trails. They total about 3 miles. Alright, now that we're back on the water, the pond itself is the real destination. I always see people fishing, and there's usually at least a couple other boats out here. The pond is 113 acres and was created in the early 1900s when the Hunt family, the road that Mono Pond is located on, is called Hunt Road, when that family dammed the lower end in the early 1900s. I think it gets as deep as 12 feet, but as you can see in these, as we head north and get close to this island here, that the average water depth is only like 3 or 3.5 feet. Able to use this tree as my entry point to the island, and I forgot my water shoes today, so I'm gonna have to pick my steps carefully. As you can see, the interior of the island is pretty easy to traverse, thankfully, and you'll find interesting artifacts like a trash can and a relatively nice fire pit. I had a reader send me an email a couple years ago saying I had to come out here and make a movie, and he sent me some of the history of the area, which I can tell you about as I make my way towards a couple of things I want to show you on the island. The land was originally owned by the Hunt family. Like I mentioned earlier, the road is named for them, and they're the ones who dammed the water to make the pond. The area was originally a peat bog, and they had a sawmill here, and the land changed hands a couple of times until a man named Mono bought it, and he operated it as a private game reserve until 1994, when the Bank of Boston foreclosed on the property. And this is interesting thing number one, a very nice little secret campsite. I believe the water axis is just over there, though the water has to be high enough. And nice little setup. The bank eventually sold the property to the state, and it became a state park in 2008. And so now it's here for us, the public, to enjoy. Another thing that the email suggested was that they'd heard word that there was a cave on the island. So, of course, I came out not too long after to search it out. So this is the cave. Not exactly a cave, as most ones in Connecticut are. It's really just a jumble of boulders. So not exactly a cave, but still a pretty cool den surrounded by rock. I think it'd satisfy any explorer who is willing to come out here. I think that does it for the island. The coastline is sort of a thicket, so not much for views, but you could walk around if you wanted to. And that does it for Mono Pond. I'm going to paddle back to the boat launch, and I'll see you next time.